training. Just to let you know up front, this meeting is being recorded and we've got 2 AI note takers because we're still debating which AI is the best amongst ourselves. So we've got 2. And so we want to make sure that we can put together a frequently asked questions piece from you all. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Michelle Blitzubs. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Surveyors Australia. And I'm pleased today to have Angelique Cooper with me. She is our project manager for national projects and is overseeing this certification program from us. She also works for the Western Australian Institution of Surveyors, who have had a certification program in place for quite some years. Now, we partnered, as many of you know, with GCA, the Geospatial Council of Australia, just a couple of months ago after many months waiting, but we've got it done. The deal is done and we've got the agreement in place. And we've got them here on the call as well. Fran is here on the call and Marion is here to help us along that space as well. So thank you for joining. Of course, they're in a bit of transition with a new CEO coming in May. But we have been working with them. We've put an advisory board together. We've got a certification committee together. We're working at CPD. There's been a lot of things going on behind the scenes. But as many of you know, we launched the program, the certification program, which has been renewed and refreshed by GCA. And we opened for applications. And shockingly, none of you have applied yet, right? So I said to Angelique, what is going on? She said, well, we're getting lots of questions. So even my own committee in Victoria that have been really the catalyst for the work that we've done had a lot of questions at our committee meeting last week. And so we said, right, we need to do an information session right now. So we've thrown this together in the last week and here you all are. So thank you all very much for giving up a bit of your time to come and join us. We're going to try and answer some of the questions that we know you have, but we're going to try to do that in half an hour. And then we want you to ask the rest of your questions from that point on, okay? And as I said, we are recording this so that we can provide it to anybody who wasn't able to make it today. And we also have a couple of AI note takers here that will help us put together a FAQ document at the end. So that's what we're going to do today. So most of you that I can see on this call are certainly engineering surveyors. Lovely to also have some registered and licensed surveyors here. You are welcome, and you're also welcome to do this process. So let's see where we go. Now, I've invited some surveyors to join us today to talk about this process. So Colin McIntosh is here. He's a director of AusPat Survey based in Melbourne. Now, he is a certified engineering surveyor, which is the new name. There was a history to this, and there was a previous name that was very well known in Queensland specifically called the ESPAP. Did I get that right, Marion? That was the previous name. And then there was a slight transition when GCA launched the new program before we signed the MOU to what was an accredited engineering surveyor. That didn't last very long. But we're now going to call it all, especially from the 1st of July, certified engineering surveyor. And you can see the new logo or new design for the moment down below. Bennett Tunbridge is also here with us from Western Australia. Bennett is on the Western Australian Institution Board, and he's been actively involved in what they call over there CPS-Eng, which stands for Certified Practicing Surveyor in Engineering. Did I get that right? No, Professional Surveyor.
No, you're right the first time. Thanks, Michelle. Yeah.
Right. Cool.
Certified Practicing Surveyor in Engineering.
I learn all these acronyms, right? So they have also embraced what we're doing here, and we're looking at grandfathering in their current CPS-Eng people over the course of a few months. And they will also use the term CES. The idea is that this is a national program and we want all surveyors to use the same post-nominals. Now, Marion Plasinski is also with us, and he's based, I thought you were in Queensland. No, are you up north?
No, I am in Queensland.
Oh, Queensland. Good. From Seymour White. Now, Marion has been actively involved in the GCA working groups and is on the advisory board and has been actively involved in all of this process. So he will understand some of the history and how it's gotten to where it is. So that's how we're going to run today, and we're going to ask them questions as we go along. So, what is the National Engineering Surveying Certification Program? It is a program that is designed to acknowledge engineering surveyors and recognise their years of experience as well as their qualification, and to really just give them a level of recognition. So many of you will be aware that we do something called the demand study, which is always sitting heavily here on my desk. Oh, this one here, my background, it doesn't work, does it? There we go. This one, which talks about the demand for skills. Now, when we produced that in 2021, we noted that there were 18,000 surveyors in the country, half of whom have a degree, half of whom have a diploma or Cert 4 or something, but only 3,500 are registered and licensed. So what that means is that the majority of surveyors in this country have no recognition, no acknowledgement. Now, our members across Australia regularly say to me, when can I get all surveyors acknowledged under the state legislation, the various acts that you all have? The answer is we're working on it. This certification program does not mean we are giving up on having government acknowledgement and government legislation that recognises all surveyors. However, the Surveyors General are not keen because they don't think that there is a market failure in this space. Despite the fact that Axis, one of the major insurance brokers in the country, tell us that the majority of cases and claims that they get have to do with set out. So despite that, we still can't get the governments to look at this. We will be advocating pretty strongly while we're trying to get all of the surveying acts to be upgraded and changed. But as we do that, we will be making submission for engineering surveyors to be acknowledged and recognised. Now in Queensland, they have what's called an associate surveyor, which gives some level of recognition for people doing set out and other sorts of work. But we still think that what we need is a national program, because I know many of you do work nationally and you work across multiple states. And we think that actually we as the industry can set the example and show the Surveyors General that it is indeed possible to have one system for our country. We're only talking about 18,000 surveyors, right? We're not talking about the thousands and thousands of engineers that might exist. Okay, so that's going to be our argument, and we're not giving up that hope or that dream. We are actually working towards it. So this new program, though, is a collaboration between Surveyors Australia and GCA, which means that we're both delivering the program. So you can apply through either one of us to get your certification, and you'll get the same badge, the same certification, the same CES post-nominals. It doesn't matter whether you go through us or through them. The same program applies. It is designed to recognise the knowledge, experience and competency that you have. And it's open to anybody with a diploma of surveying or above. Okay, so minimum level. And I know one of the questions that you're going to ask is, what if I don't have it? We'll come back to that. But minimum level of qualification is the diploma. Why it matters? Again, as I've mentioned, I think the majority of surveyors in this country have not been recognised in any way, shape or form, and we need to do that. We think it provides an opportunity for career progression for engineering surveyors. One of the things I noted when we had our first engineering surveyors workshop in Victoria, the numbers of surveyors with 20 or more years experience who said to me they had never been to a CPD event. Right? I think that's shocking. The fact that there would be half of you on this call who've never even thought that you could go to a CSV event or an ACS in New South Wales or a WACE or a, one of ours. I think that's terrible. And I think that we need to fix that. And many of you have heard me speak publicly, and you know that I often get up and say, here we are at this event, hands up all the registered or licensed surveyors, and everybody raises their hands. And I say, and where are your technicians? Do they not need training? Do they not need to hear this stuff? Where are your draftees? Why aren't we bringing others through this process? So that's something I feel pretty strongly about. For employers amongst you, we think this will give greater credibility to your firms. We think that this will give greater credibility for your teams, an acknowledgement of sorts. We think it will build confidence with your staff that they have a clear pathway. And don't get me wrong, we still want to encourage registration and licensing. Okay, we're not doing that. But we don't want to say that if you get your degree and you choose not to go down the cadastral pathway, that you're any less important than any other surveyor. Okay, we're trying to provide that recognition. And there's also some specifications and some specialties within this. So there's a general certification and a specialist certification, which I'll probably get Marion to talk about when we get to it. Just before I talk about that next piece, the process, can I just say that it's a little bit of cart, horse, chicken, egg, which comes first, right? So we were already hearing, well, nobody accepts the certification and nobody knows about it, so why should we do it? Now, there are about, I believe I've seen a presentation from Tony Wheeler at GCA, and he said there are 3 groups that only accept certification. One of them is the most well-known is TMR in Queensland. I believe Main Roads in WA is also one of them. And I can't quite remember who the third one is. I spoke to Transport for New South Wales about this, and they'd never heard of the certification program, the previous one. So it will be my job when I get back from holidays, which I'm about to go on, when I get back from holidays, to actually go around to all the transport agencies. We actually have a list. I've given Angelique a list of 200 companies, all the big tier 1s, tier 2s, tier 3s. We're not quite going down to below that at this stage, but we've got a list of 200 companies across Australia that Angelique's going to be reaching out to say, we need to talk to you about your contracting processes, and we need you to be including certified engineering surveyors in all future contracts. Okay. I don't have it yet, and I can't guarantee you that I'm going to get it either, but we're going to try, and we're going to knock on as many doors as we can. And we're putting into our budget for next year, from January on, that we will start presenting at other conferences like the Contractors Association councils, or all the council groups across all the states. There was just recently an issue in Queensland where the Surveyors Board wrote to all the Queensland surveyors and said that only registered surveyors could do as constructed plans. Now, we don't think that's right. So we want to address that.
Michelle, they weren't saying that. What they were saying is that where a local government says in their specifications,
that's right.
Then yeah.
That's right. That's right. So it said that if the local government says only a registered surveyor can do it, then only a registered surveyor can do it. The point is, councils don't know that there are other surveyors, right? And this is part of the reason in New South Wales, there's a Building Act, and I've just been asked to sign a letter, but surveying's not included in the Building Act because the state government agencies think that we've got a Surveying and Spatial Act and it covers all surveyors. And all these other government agencies don't know that it only covers registered cadastral surveyors, right? So slight variation in Queensland because they've got so many levels of registration. Anyway, so we will be going out and we will be promoting this, and we will be sharing it and trying to get as many organisations as possible to adjust their tender processes, adjust their requirements, to not just say surveyor, but to identify whether they need a registered or licensed cadastral surveyor or whether they need a certified engineering surveyor. We also recognise, and the other feedback that we've had, is that we can't get them to say that we can only have certified engineering surveyors, right? And we understand that. We have to acknowledge that there's still a training process. There's still got to be an opportunity for surveyors to learn on the job, right? And we can't, on these major infrastructure programs, only have certified engineering surveyors when I don't have enough of them yet, right? At the moment, there are 140 or 160 certified engineering surveyors in the country out of what I think is a possible 10,000. That's my goal, right? So I think that we need to just go slow, but we need to progress. And what we first need to do is we need you guys, all of you, to actually go through the process. Okay, and we'll talk about the process in a minute. I'll just address the qualification question that I know you have. We have decided, and it has been decided, that the minimum is a diploma. Now, if you've been a surveyor on site for 20 plus years, good on you. You are a great surveyor. I don't doubt that you're a great surveyor, but we have to have some baseline entry level. Now, if you are one of those and you don't have a qualification, the good news is we have a process now that you can get that qualification. But I don't think at this stage, any of the advisory boards or committees are willing to lower the standard below diploma, right? We're trying to raise the bar for all of surveying, right? We talk about ourselves as a profession. We talk about ourselves as not a trade, okay? So we need to deliver on that. So I can talk to you separately about that if you wish.
What about, Michelle, some of the overseas qualifications? I mean, some of the guys from the UK and Ireland or whatever, some of their qualifications don't even, have the word surveying in it.
Yeah.
It might be construction management or some sort of engineering degree or whatever. How does that work?
So there is a process to do that part of the assessment, and Marion might be able to talk to this, and I'd be interested to know, Bennett, if you've done any in WA as well around what happens when you get those through. Because this is new to us. We have a process here at Surveyors Australia about what we do, but I'd be interested to know whether in the certification program, whether there's allowance for that and what you do. Marion, can you answer that one?
When someone applies for the certification, having overseas diplomas, they have to get the diploma certified or recognized by either GCA, SBQ, or any other body, like any other New South Wales body, let's say. And basically the idea is, let's say with the Surveyors Board of Queensland, if you supply transcript and a diploma to them, they make an assessment if your diploma is sufficient to get registered as a surveyor in Queensland. So this is one type of a registration that GCA and Surveyors Australia would recognize. Another type of assessment of the overseas diploma is the assessment also based on transcript that can be done by GCA, whether this type of diploma is sufficient to apply for a visa in Australia based on the being employed as a surveyor. So this is something that GCA already does. Basically, in those cases, it's always about submitting the transcript from a recognized university and having it assessed. I understand that some of them don't come with the word surveying, but it's all about what actually is contained within those courses.
Thank you. And Bennett, have you had any of those cases in WA?
Currently in WA, under our waste model, we've actually got, we don't have that criteria of needing to, or there's a grandfather clause if you've got 10 years plus of experience, which I think that's where we've had a lot more people come, or had surveyors come through, and not necessarily needing to bring a diploma or degree, whatever, from a different country. But obviously in this new criteria, that's not applicable. So we haven't had anything to deal with it directly in that regards, due to what it's been like previously.
Right. Okay. So I'll just let you know that actually when the surveyors boards are getting an assessment, it actually comes through Surveyors Australia. So one of the things that we're looking at is the people who do that assessment for CRS bands. We are going to talk to them about whether they could provide us with something and they could do that assessment as part of this process. Now, it's an extra cost. So we'll need to consider what that cost might be. And I'm looking to have a meeting with them actually Thursday about, he's playing golf today. You know, I'm sorry, I wanted to talk to him before this call, but he's on the golf course or cricket or something. So, you know, which is much more important, clearly. So I will talk to them and find out what we can do around that. We have had discussion at the level that, you know, there needs to be some acknowledgement of particularly, so firstly, you have to have some level of qualification to get into the country, right? Australia doesn't let you become a citizen or even come and work here without some level of skill and qualification. So I think we need to acknowledge that. And especially for some of you older ones who've been here for, as Bennett said, 10 plus years and have been working, especially if you become a permanent resident, I think that's something that we need to look at. So what I would say to you is this is the process. We're saying it has to be a diploma, but I don't want that to be a blockage for you and a stopping point for those of you who trained overseas, especially if you've been here for, you know, 20 years or something. So I would like for you to still go through the process, because some of this is, I don't know how we're going to handle some things until we start seeing your applications come through, right? So I'd rather you didn't say, well, I did my, you know, degree in Poland, where Marion did his, right? You know, I did my degree there and I don't have the documentation because I've been here for 20 years and I've moved house 5 times, right? I don't want that to stop you putting in an application. What we'd rather do is identify where that challenge is against our criteria, have a discussion with you and work out what the solution might be. That's what we'd like to do. So does that answer that question, Colin?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So any more questions before I go on and talk about the process? Okay, good. All right. So the process, okay, you do need to hold a formal qualification in surveying, whether that's from here or overseas or somewhere, you will need to have something and you'll need to be able to find us something on that, okay? That, despite what I just said, that's the first stepping point. But just don't not put in an application because you don't know where it is, okay? At least have a conversation with Angelique about it, okay? You need to have professional experience. Now, depending on your level of qualification, depends on how many years of experience you've got to have. Okay, so I think with a diploma, it's 5 years. A 3-year degree is 4 years. A 4-year degree is 3 years. That's kind of how it benchmarks through. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. And most of you on this call have been engineering surveyors for a lot longer than that. Some of you are ready to retire, but you're still going to get your certification before you do. Way to go. Now, then you apply for general or specialist certification. Now, at the moment, we're really on our website, we really only talk about the general certification. We haven't delved into too much about the specialist. GCA are probably ready for people to go on and do their specialist. And some of you that I've already spoken to said, can I just do them both at the same time because I've got 20 years experience? The answer is yes. You can put in application for both of them at the same time, especially if you've got that level of experience. The specialist certification, Marion can probably talk to us a little bit about what's the difference between general and specialist.
Yes, so general is the most basic, I don't want to say basic, but the base certification, which is basically carry over from the previous ESPAP. A couple of years ago, it was identified that people wanted to kind of be recognized for their exceptional experience. So that's why the specialist certification was introduced. There are a few different criteria or maybe areas, disciplines in which you can get a specialist certification like survey control or bridges or advanced earthworks. Basically, at this point in time, it's a cherry on top. It's like TMR recognizes certified engineering surveyors, but they just recognize them at the general level. No one is asking for the specialist certification. At this point in time, at this moment in time, it's just for yourself to say, hey, I have this base level and I have something extra on top of it. Not saying that this might be different in the future, but at this point in time, it's just something extra. Another comparison to what specialist certification is for those of you who work in Queensland. We have registered surveyors, and the SBQ offers engineering endorsement. there is not a single body that recognizes engineering endorsement, and there are maybe like 17 people in Queensland who have it. But still, this is like a cherry on top for those of the guys who really want to have extra post-nominals to have them there. So at this point in time, it's just an extra bit of the specification, like over and above, but it doesn't say that in the future you won't be, let's say, required on the mega projects for the survey managers. So yeah, that's where we are right now with it.
Yeah, and I mean, as things develop, it might be tunneling might be a specialty, and railways might become a specialty, and bridges. I don't know. You know, like we just wanted to have some options, I think, about where it could go. So, but it's if you're going to apply and you want both, and you can meet the criteria, you go right ahead. The more we've got, the more opportunities it gives us to, when I'm talking to the tier ones, etc., to say to them, well, a specialist does this, and you might want them for this kind of role, and a generalist does this, and that should be everybody else. Right? That's kind of where that's going to go. And then the other thing is that you are going to have to do continuing professional development to maintain your certification. Now, at the moment, it's listed as 15 hours. I've heard from some of you that you think it should only be 10. We've had a debate about it already at the certification committee. At the moment, it's going to stay 15. So if you think that that's too much, you need to let me know. Now, I would say I have to do more than that as a certified association executive, but it's quite tricky. It means, and it's not that we're saying that you're going to have 2.5 days out of work to get you that. It's going to be up to us as the industry bodies, us and GCA, to provide you with the content that you need to get that certification, right? So I've just actually met with CI, CES, whatever that English one is that Chris Gill told me to talk to, and they do it. They have certification. I've got one of their magazines here, and the CPDs, no problem. So we can do 1-hour webinars. We can do, you know, some of those events that you all come to that we put on. You know, there's stuff that CSV does. There's stuff that ISV, ACS, IS, all that stuff, right? It'll be up to us as an industry to deliver the variety that you need to get all your guys there. And we recognise you can't just close the shop for the day and send everybody to a CPD event. Okay, so we've got to provide the variety, and we've got to provide it in different formats so that you can get your guys there. So fun fact, I've been talking to 12D, and they have some great online stuff, right? That would come with CPD. So, and I know a lot of you use 12D. So what else can we do through UPG, through Leica, through others around supporting you for that? Okay, so for the moment though, it's 15 hours a year. So that's going to be a financial year. Now, we will be auditing to make sure that everybody, we have 100% requirement for CPD here at Surveyors Australia. GCA does so if you're trying to figure out why you should do it between us and GCA, I'm giving you a couple of the reasons, because the price is the same wherever you do it. But we will 100% audit your CPD. So if you don't have it, you can't keep your registration, your certification, okay? And our system records it for you. You don't have to do anything. We do it for you. Don't worry. We've got a person who does that. And GCA only audits 10% of their list. So you might be lucky and not get audited, and they won't know that you haven't done it. But I'll know if you haven't done it. So just saying. Okay. What are the assessors looking for? And this is where, again, you know, Marriott, Bennett, you guys jump in whenever you feel like it.
Michelle, sorry. Chris has just got his hand
Chris
up.
Chris has got his hand up. Thank you. Yes, Chris.
Just quickly, thanks, Michelle. On the CPD from overseas you mentioned, I think there's a really good point that I just wanted to make. When that all first started, it was very hard to get arranged. But as time went on, different businesses became aware that it was a good way of interacting with other businesses. So there was a bit of a byproduct of all of this. The collaboration across the industry became much better. And I think in Victoria over the last couple of years, obviously me and Colin and all the boys have got together on numerous occasions to talk about, and I think we've progressed more in the 2 years since we had that fight with the CFMEU. So I think there's a good opportunity for here nationally to work better with other businesses. So, you know, we may be going up for the same jobs, but I think fundamentally we all want what's best for the profession. So that CPD, you kind of end up arranging it yourself and it just figures itself out. There's always enough to do once you get your head around it.
Yeah, easily. I mean, I certainly put on enough events. Is there a comment here in the chat? Yeah. So yes, so accrual of points is from the next full financial year. So if you get certified now in April, May, you don't have to have your full points by the 30th of June. Okay. We're looking to start counting from the 1st of July for points for the next year. Okay. That's so it's the next full year. Don't worry. Although some of you probably already would have 15 points, Megan. I know you'd already have yours. No worries. You've only got to come to 2 of our events and you're done. Okay, so what are assessors looking for? Demonstrated competence against the framework. It's very detailed. It's very thorough. We think it's easy enough to understand. We think you should be able to work through it. From a Surveyors Australia perspective, we didn't create this. So I want to know any challenges that you have as you're completing the framework, as you're going through it. Okay, we don't want you to go start. I had a few people say to me, I started, it was hard, so I stopped. I need to know the hard. I need to know what stopped you from completing it. I need to know what stopped you from continuing the process. Okay, so please do let us know where you're getting hung up in that process so that we can go back to the committee who have been meeting every fortnight, right? So there is a lot going on here, and we are happy to, you know, look at what needs to be done to make sure that we're not trying to lower the benchmark, but we don't want it to be, you know, way too hard either. Evidence-based claims, and Marion will talk about this in a little bit. Actually, it's all on the screen. So, Marion, do you want to talk a little bit about what assessors are looking for?
Yeah, of course. So basically, framework is consisting of a few parts. Some of them are mandatory that everybody who applying for the certification has to answer, like survey control. And some of them are elective, let's say structures or civil, because not everybody is working across the full spectrum of possible engineering works. For each and every one of those areas that have to be answered in the framework, basically what the assessors are looking for is whether the requirements on the framework are answered and whether the information provided is clear and easy to follow and understand. Imagine this as an application, and if someone signs off in person, they would like to feel like, hey, this guy or girl, they know what they're doing, and I would trust them, you know, doing something on my project, on my site. When it comes to a survey control, let me give you an example because it's a mandatory part. When it comes to the survey control, there are a few things listed there as a required evidence. Example of the survey control report, adjustment of the survey control. So anybody who's doing any survey control for the bridge, for the civil project, for the subdivision, they can provide something that is from 12D, TBC, standard, you name it. As long as the report is there and showing that the data was entered the correct way, that there are no crazy residuals, you can see that the information is correct. If there are requirements for, let's say, earthworks, where people are claiming that they built up a road, they built the payments, they've done the civils, there are conformance reports. There's a payment conformance report that's showing the thickness, that's showing the delta levels. Everything is based on some kind of a specification. So if a surveyor describes, I got this job, this is the spec I had to follow, those are the models I got, I use those models to set something out, then we confirm it using survey control, this is the report, all the numbers on the report are based on those specifications. That's exactly what the assessors are looking for. This is nothing really super crazy, it's just like an everyday regular surveying job. And when someone wants to provide their experience, they don't have to provide evidence from every project they ever worked over the last 10 years. If you are showing that you're claiming 10 years work on, let's say, bridges, and you describe in 2017, I work on this project, 2018, 19 on this project, happy days. Describe it as it was a resume. Explain your workflow. I'm getting the data, I'm creating survey control, everything on scale factor 1, I'm doing the reports, those are the specs, those are the tolerances, those are the deliverables. No one is expecting to see the survey controller reports from the last 10 years or a conformance reports from the last years. As long as there is one report showing, hey, I've done the conformance of a deck, or I prepared the data for the pre-pour of the deck, calculated the camber, that's enough. It doesn't have to be multiplied 17 times. As long as it's answered once, it's sufficient for the assessors. So I would like to say everything in the framework, if it says mandatory, has to be answered, but it doesn't have to be answered to like a crazy detail showing the last 10 years. One example from every type of job would be absolutely sufficient. And in some of the cases, there's definitely a lack of evidence. Some people just don't have copies. Some people are not allowed to keep copies because they work for a contractor overseas or for the defense, and they're just not allowed to have any documentation. One way of providing evidence is basically writing a statutory declaration that, hey, I've done this and that without any details. This was my survey workflow. That's how I received the data. That's how I processed the data. That's how I prepared the data. That's how I set it out and confirmed it. As long as the process is nice and clear to follow, this is sufficient for the assessors to say, hey, tick, this part of the framework is deemed as conforming.
Excellent. So it's not easy, and it shouldn't be easy, right? We're setting a benchmark here and a standard, and you don't want us just to let anybody in, like, do you really? You want there to be a standard. And so we've got to set this standard. So you are going to have to put some effort in towards pulling the application together. Okay. The reason we're doing this before Easter is you're about to have all these holidays that you don't know what to do with, right? You're going to have Friday off, and you're going to have Monday off, and you're going to have Anzac Day off, right? 3 days. I just found you 3 days, people. I mean, I know some of you probably have families and they expect you to do things, but even so, can I just encourage you to put in the time and energy to put, whether it's a detailed report, if you can grab some data from some more recent contracts and some more recent work that you've done, but we do appreciate that some of your clients don't release some of that. You can't include that, right? We appreciate that. The point is you need to convince us that you know what you're doing. Okay, that's what this is about. And so there will be a paper component, which is an online, it's a jot form, and the forms are the same. Whether you go through us or GCA, the form is exactly the same, right? And so you fill out the form and you upload your documents, okay? And then Angelique goes through and she checks, have you got this, 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 and this? If you've missed anything, she calls you or emails you and said, you forgot this and I still need that and I still need the other, okay? Then when that comes through, what we do is we send that out to an assessor and they check it, okay? And they have a good look at it. And then they say, yep, okay, I think he looks pretty good or she looks pretty good. And then we send it to another assessor to be checked. And they say, yep, oh, hang on a minute, Colin missed this or Marion missed that. And what about this and da-da-da, right? So, okay, all right. We like him. We think he's probably pretty close. That Rob Cross, yeah, he's been around for a while. I think we can trust that he knows what he's doing. He's listed some pretty good projects here. Okay, but we better interview him just to make sure, because there's probably 100 Rob Crosses in the world, right? So I think we better check that he's actually the right Rob Cross and he hasn't got an AI to write this thing. So then there'll be an interview, which will be a half hour, probably, Teams interview with those two assessors, okay, that have looked at your documentation. Now, and then they will ask you some questions. They might ask you some tricky questions. They might have some questions about something that you submitted. Assuming for the majority of you that are on this call that have been in our surveying world for many, many years, right? I'm not expecting most of you are going to have no trouble with this process, okay? If you can do that, you can have your CES, we are saying, within 4 weeks. Okay. So I'm about to go on 6 weeks holiday, and I expect when I get back that at least 50 of you have done this process, Chris Gill. I'm looking at you, right? Okay, so no more delaying. That's my holiday wish, okay? Any questions about the process?
What about the costs, Michelle?
Yes, great. Do we have a slide on cost, Angelique? Probably not. No, we wouldn't want to tell you that. Okay, the cost is $500 for general assessment, whether you do it through us or GCA, I don't know, plus GST or something, per person. Now, in case you're all saying, and I've seen some posts or some people that said this is just a money-making exercise, the money goes to the assessors. We're paying a $50 fee to GCA because they created the program. So $50 goes to GCA, $50 goes to the tax office. And then pretty much the majority of it goes to the assessors who are going to be paid. And I think we might get $50 to $100 towards Angelique's salary, if I'm lucky, out of each assessment. This is not a money-making exercise for us. Most of you here are our members. So if you're not a member, it costs extra. But most people are either members of ours or GCA's, in which case that's the member price. So GCA have a different process. They do theirs 3 times a year. They take intakes 3 times a year. They've just closed their March intake. We are offering to do it round the clock, right? So anytime you submit, if you've given us all the information that we've requested, I'm promising turnaround in 4 weeks. Okay, at any time of year. I don't care when you put your application in. Okay, that's Angelique's job, is going to be to manage this. I'd like to get enough in that I'm going to have to say to my board, I need another Angelique. 10,000 surveyors, right? I've got to get through this process. Then we've got to keep the CPD going, and we've got to get everybody through it, and we've got to get the TMRs and all the others of the world to be accepting of it. Okay, good. I'll keep going. Now, I've talked about the continuing professional development, so we won't keep talking about that. There is a register. There is currently a register on both our website and the GCA website. It is the same list. We share the list. We use the list. We've got a shared OneDrive going on here between us. And so it doesn't matter whether you choose certification through us or GCA, you go on the list. And you'll note on the list that we've got whether you're a member of us or whether you're a member of GCA, or one of our partners, because I recognise that some of you might be members of Consulting Surveyors Victoria or WACE or Consulting Surveyors South Australia or ACS New South Wales. That's fine. Surveyors Australia, we've got MOUs with all of them. We accept all of those. The Institution of Surveyors in Victoria and ISNSW is another case. We've talked about this at the advisory board, and we've said that, you know, I think in there, and I'm not quite sure if we sign this off, Angelique will be able to tell me, but we made the argument that we actually think you should be the member of a professional surveying body, right? You choose. Naturally, I think it should be one of mine, funnily enough. GCA thinks you should join them. You choose, right? It's your money. You put it where you think it should go. But we want you to be a member of a professional body. So if you're in New South Wales and you're a member of the Institution of Surveyors New South Wales, that's fine. And the same if you're in Victoria. Everything is on the website. It's all on our website. It's on the GCA website, the frequently asked questions, the documents, the checklist. And Angelique is available to answer any question any time of the day or night. Not really. She technically only works for me Australian Eastern Daylight Time 4 hours. So ask her in the afternoon on a weekday. And she'll answer your question. Okay, great. Yep, good. So GCA is going to look to having an open door policy as well, welcoming people through. That's great. Okay. Questions. I'll just put this site up so you can, I mean, look, it's on our website, all that detail. Don't need any more slides. Questions. Over to you. Actually, before I hand it over to you, while you're thinking of your questions, Colin McIntosh, you've been an ESP AP and you are now a CES. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Why should these surveyors on this call go through this process?
Oh, well, firstly, congratulations on getting this up and running, Michelle. I think it's a critical thing for us engineering surveyors. Biggest thing for me, first and foremost, was I just wanted to get qualified, and my skills and experience as an engineer, as an engineering surveyor, recognised by the industry. So whether that was, my peers, my clients, the government, I just wanted, my skill set to be recognised by the industry. I got certified about 7 years ago under the old format. And that was actually a little bit clumsy. So I'm sort of glad that it's now going to this new phase. And I know that we'll learn along the way. There'll be a few little hiccups that will happen, but I think it's a great thing for the industry. Probably the biggest thing why I did get certified really just came back to probably my Victorian roots, where I felt that the industry here in Victoria was completely unregulated. And I do know that most of the other states have some sort of regulation on their projects. But if you go onto any project here in Victoria, there is nothing that says you've got to be certified or qualified. Some of our contracts now have a bit of a stipulation about surveyors being qualified, but basically it's just completely unregulated. So I think if we can push for this to be mandatory on all our sites, I know there's going to be a little bit of a hiccup, because it's going to be impossible to get everybody certified in, probably the amount of time before government recognises it. But I just think that it's necessary. I mean, we saw in the last year, particularly in Victoria, with how our unions are so strong, and I think they took advantage on the fact that we were unregulated, and there's nothing stipulated anywhere to say that you should be qualified or certified. So, I think the end game is that we want, all our clients and the government and every other, key stakeholders, whether it's councils or water authorities or anybody, that they recognise that engineering surveyors should be certified.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, if you think about it, like every other industry, whether you're, a surgeon, a nurse, a plumber, an electrician, I mean, they all have a certification process, which also includes, attending CPD events, because I think that's a key to it as well, making sure that we're continually upskilling, keeping up to date with technology. So, I just think it's a win-win all around.
Great, thank you. And just before I go to Patrick's question, Bennett, can you talk to us a little bit about, you've had this process in WA for quite some time. Can you talk to us about the benefit that you have found? You have it, others have it there. What's that benefit for you, even to RM surveys? What's been that benefit for you?
Yeah, I'll probably go similar to what Colin was saying. The reason I got it was the same sort of reason, to upstand ourselves within the industry. We're finding a lot of anyone and anybody was calling themselves a surveyor. Everyone was, particularly in engineering, anybody could have been an engineering surveyor. You could have been 15 years, 20 years experience, or someone who's just come straight off the boat, or whatever it may be, off the aeroplane, straight out of TAFE school or whatever, and they're all lumped in as being the same skill, or the same sort of level of skills and the qualifications. So getting this in board has been great. It's probably lost a little bit of its way since COVID, or even just beforehand, where it sort of moved away from it. But yeah, that's probably the biggest reason, and obviously the best reason for it to be a part of this. And just getting the numbers on board now is the next step.
Yeah, and we've actually had applications in WA, so that's exciting. Patrick, your question.
Hey, Michelle. Echo everyone's thoughts that it's a great program, much improved and definitely necessary in the industry. My question was about the certification. Obviously said you need a diploma. to do it, but I was wondering if Surveyors Australia had put any thought into how it might, tie into the TAFE or the TAFE qualification that Surveyors Australia have developed. Seems there might be an opportunity there to it maybe not the same level of certification, but to those people who complete a TAFE course, then to be recognised as well. I
Yes.
don't know if this is the right vehicle to do it, but just.
Yeah, no, absolutely it is. And look, part of the reason that we created the new program for the diploma, the certificate for and the diploma course, was because there's 4 states that don't deliver the TAFE course. Queensland being one of them. Queensland, Northern Territory, ACT and Tasmania have no TAFE course. And New South Wales is always full. They never have capacity. So that's why we actually introduced the diploma course. And one of the things that we found as I've travelled around is the numbers of surveyors that have worked for 20 years or 10 years and just sort of never got to TAFE. They just never got their diploma. In Queensland, they just didn't want to go to NESQ and do the associate degree. So there's actually quite a lot of surveyors out there that have no qualification. They're highly skilled, great surveyors, just no qualification.
So that diploma level qualification can be obtained through that.
It can. So we actually have had an influx, not because of this was before the certification program. We've had an influx of people who can do what we call required prior learning, RPL. So you can do an RPL for the diploma, and you can do that through us. We've got people all over the country doing it right now, and we've got a new diploma course starting on the 29th of April. So you can enroll in that. I will tell you though, it's almost faster and easier to do the 12-month course than it is to do the RPL process. If you're having trouble putting your application together for this, the RPL, to actually get the government to agree that you've got the required learning and the required skills to get a diploma, is quite difficult. So the course is 1 day a week online with us, and then in the workplace under a supervising surveyor 4 days a week. And that is actually faster. So I can tell you, we're graduating a group of people in May, and there are people who are still trying to do their RPL. If they just sat the diploma last year, they would have graduated by now. Okay, so I know you're very experienced. I know you're highly skilled. I know you don't need us to teach you how to suck eggs, but I promise you'll learn something anyway. Okay, there's new underground locating units in this course. Okay, there is new stuff coming through. So I really do encourage you to think about enrolling in the diploma, either for RPL or to actually do the course. And Peter Cox from Industry Training Alliance and our Surveyors Academy can talk you through that. But yeah, I do encourage you to, just do it. It'll be good for you. And you can use it as CPD when you get your certification for the first year, not for ongoing, but for the first year, it'll be good. Other questions?
Yeah, another one from me. Will Surveyors Australia, are they delivering but they're delivering the certification, or they're taking the intakes and taking on the role of an assessor? But they're basically using the GCA program, so the committees and the development process that's established in GCA. That's what's developing the certification. I guess Surveyors Australia aren't developing a separate, program.
Some of you will recall that in April last year, we released a discussion paper on the state of certification in Australia. And we raised our concerns that we didn't think that the GCA process was working. And there were a number of reasons for that. What was going on behind the scenes was that GCA had formed a working group, and they were actually reviewing the certification program. So we released our paper, we discussed it at our July conference last year, and actually it was Craig Sandy who said to us, actually GCA is changing their program. So we since met with them, and we drafted the MOU in September last year, which was signed in March this year by GCA. And we have now put together an advisory board that has half Surveyors Australia, half GCA people on it. We have a certification committee that has half GCA, half Surveyors Australia people on it. And the assessors panel have people who've been through the process and who are currently certified surveyors in the assessment panel. Now, half of them are Surveyors Australia members and half of them are GCA members, because a lot of them are actually members of both. So that's been helpful. We will look to expand 10,000 surveyors, right? Colin's freaking out because he's one of the assessors, right? So is Marion. He's like, 10,000, how are we going to do that many? We need more of you to become assessors. So we do actually need you to come through this process and then become assessors for us, because Bennett can't do them all either, right? So we've got about 10 assessors now. Not enough. I need more. So some of you, I think, can come through this and do that process. Now, the certification committee that we formed will be continuously reviewing the program. So we have agreed to pay GCA a $50 fee off everyone that we certify for the next 12 months, because it's basically their program. But over these 12 months, and look, maybe it won't change. Maybe it's fine. I don't know. You're all going to tell me, okay? You're all going to tell me the bits that don't work for you and the changes that you think need to be made. And then what we will do is we will take those to the certification committee and we will say, we think this needs to be updated, and we think that needs to be changed, we think this needs to be, and we will eventually or continually improve the process. Not drop the standard, improve the process. And that's what we'll be working on. So over time, it will continue to be a GCA Surveyors Australia delivery of the program, but over time it will become our program. At the moment, both of us program. For the moment, it's the GCA program and we're paying them a fee to run it, but we're running it together. Does that answer that question?
Yes, thank you very much. Yep.
Other questions? Look at you all. 5 o'clock on the dot. You'd think you'd want to go home. Not 5 o'clock in WA. They're still working. Come on. Okay. So can I just reiterate that I'm about to go on 6 weeks holiday. That's right. I'll be back on the 1st of June. I'm not going to have my emails on. I won't be contactable. However, I will occasionally just check how many people have applied for the certification. I won't really, but Angelique will tell me when I get back how many have applied for the certification and how many of you have passed and how many of you are through and how many of you have volunteered to become assessors for us, which is very exciting. I'm looking forward to that as well. So thank you all very much for being here today. We do appreciate it. We thank you for your support of the program. We thank you for your interest. There's still a lot of work to do. When we signed the agreement with GCA, we were all very excited, but we knew the work had just begun, okay? And so really what we've got to do is get to those tier 1 providers, get to all those government agencies and make sure they understand what a certified engineering surveyor is, what they do, why they matter, and why they should only be using certified engineering surveyors. So I look forward to all of you going through the process. Yes, even if you're a registered cadastral surveyor, you can still become a certified engineering surveyor as well. Be an overachiever, that's what I say. Thank you all very much. I will see you all in June. Oh, by the way, in July, you can come to our national conference in Darwin, which will be all on business. It'll be fabulous. And I'm sure there'll be points available towards your CES. See you in Darwin. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.